This morning, if you would, turn with me to 2 Chronicles chapter 7. I'd like to read verses 19 through 22. And I'll be reading from the New International Version. It says this: "But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands that I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now so imposing, all who pass by it will be appalled and say, 'Why has the Lord done such a thing as this in this land, to this land and to this temple?' People will answer, 'Because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them.'" We're just about to come to Thanksgiving. And I would say that there's not a single one of us who won't celebrate with friends or family. None of us who won't eat more than we should. Many of us will play games or watch football with family, and hopefully we'll all pause to give thanks to God for the way that he has blessed us in America. There's a song that says, "God bless America, land that I love." And I'm convinced that God has blessed America. But the Bible teaches that to whom much is given, much is expected. If so, then God must expect a lot from America. This morning, I'd like to look at three aspects of America. I'd like to look at America's past, present, and future. And so first, let's look at America's past. America's past. Would you think with me a moment about America's past? History tells us that in 1620, a group of Christians who called themselves Pilgrims made their way from England across the Atlantic Ocean to the shores of this land. They had received permission to settle in the northern part of the region known as Virginia, to establish a colony and erect a church that they hoped would be free and independent from the Church of England. But late fall winds battered their boat, pushing them northward. And when they finally sighted land, it was at a place that we now call Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The date was November 21st. They didn't want to land there because it was a cold and foreboding wilderness. So they debated for a while. Should we try to get to Virginia or just go ahead and settle here? Finally, they decided that their boat would probably not make it to Virginia, so they came ashore at a place that we now know as Plymouth Rock. But before they did, they wrote what is now known today as the Mayflower Compact. It began with these words: "In the name of God, we whose names are underwritten, having undertaken, for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith, a voyage to plant a first colony in the northern part of Virginia. We do solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another covenant and combine ourselves together." Do you realize what they were saying? We have come here in the name of God. We have come here to glorify God. We have come here to advance the Christian faith. Now, they may have used a lot more words than I just did, but that's basically what they were saying. They were saying we are unashamedly Christians, and we search for a place where we can worship God the way that we feel the Bible teaches us to worship Him. You know, today we hear a lot of the phrase bantied about the separation of church and state. But what I want you to understand, that for these pilgrims that landed at Plymouth Rock, the concern was not about Christianity interfering with government. The fear was that government would interfere with their Christianity. Because the Church of England was run by the government. And the government determined what could be taught or what could be proclaimed from the pulpit. And these early Christians, these early American Christians, wanted to be able to worship God how they saw fit. They were seeking religious freedom from a government that told them how they must worship. Someone has said the difference between North and South America is that the Spaniards went to South America in search of gold, but the Pilgrims and the Puritans came to North America in search of God. There's enough truth in that to explain some of the differences in the history and the development of our two continents. The earliest foundations of this new land were spiritual foundations. Did you notice at the very beginning where all of those quotes from early presidents made reference to God? I found it interesting that the last one was 1981. Surely there's been some president that has made some reference to God since then, but not like we used to. Because we're moving away from our Christian heritage. The earliest foundations in this new land were spiritual foundations. We were a nation and are a nation that was built upon faith in and a commitment to God. Let's look at America's present. America's present. Are you proud to be an American? I am. I still love to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. The Pledge of Allegiance still means something to me. That's one of the things I love about camp, is that every morning we still gather for flag raising and we pledge our allegiance to the American flag, to the Christian flag, and to the Bible. I can remember, because I'm old, how we used to still say the Pledge of Allegiance in our classroom. Something that I don't think happens anymore today. There are many things that you can do in this land that you can't do anywhere else in the world. We still have the freedom to come and assemble and worship God as we see fit. That's not true everywhere. That's not true in communist China. That's not true in I think it's Laos now. It used to be Burma. There's a lot of places where if you are a Christian, you can be persecuted and literally die for your faith. We have so much to be thankful for here in America. Let me go back and read that passage one more time in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 19 through 22. And I want you to understand here that God is speaking to Solomon and the people of Israel. And the context of this is that Solomon has just built the temple. He's just built the temple, and God is speaking to him. And he says this: "But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands that I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now so imposing, All who pass by it will be appalled and say, 'Why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple?' People will answer, 'Because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he has brought all this disaster on them.'" Now, Micah 6:8 tells us, it says this, "He has showed you, O man, what don't you think?" So let's take note of them. The first is to act justly. To do what is right. To do the right thing, even though the wrong thing is the easiest thing to do. It means to take care of the poor and the elderly, to minister to the sick and to the unborn, to protect them and to tell the truth. You know, I'll confess I'm struggling a little bit, because I was watching a video on YouTube the other day, just this last week, that said that there's a real concern for hurricane victims of Helene, who are in North Carolina, because they are still living in tents, and now the weather is getting cold. There was one family that this person wouldn't mention because he's afraid, the family was afraid that if they mentioned who they were, that Division of Homeland Security or the Division of Family Services would come take their kids away because they have nowhere else to live but a tent. And the weather and winter is coming. It's right around the corner. And, you know, I struggle a little bit because they were talking about the billions of dollars that we have given to FEMA for emergency management, right? And I remember when we had Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana, and they had all of these campers. You know, they went to these camper companies and they said, "We just need plain campers." There was no decals, no fancy paint on them, but they provided housing for these people who were homeless. And now all we can do is give them $750 per family. If you have a computer to go online and apply for it. I don't know about you, but I don't think $750 would house a family in a motel for a week. What happened to this ginormous agency that was, started to take care of people who have been affected by natural disasters? What's happened to us? I don't know if you remember, we need men and women of integrity that are leading this country. I don't know, do you remember, it's been several years ago now, how it came out that our congressmen had their own congressional checkbook, and if they overdrafted it, that they would just automatically pay off over all of the overdraft charges? That was our tax dollars at work. Or the fact that Jackie Spear told the media that over 15 million taxpayer dollars have been paid out by the House on behalf of people who have made claims of harassment by House members. What does that say about the people that are leading us in our nation? We need men and women of integrity that are going to govern our nation. Thomas Jefferson said, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever." The second thing that was in Micah 6:8 was to love mercy. To love mercy. This means extending mercy and forgiveness to others. We have received it ourselves, and we all know that we're the recipients of God's mercy. We have been forgiven by him, and we didn't earn our salvation. God has saved us by his grace and by his mercy. Therefore, we are to share what we have received. So we give back to the community, to the world, the mercy and grace and forgiveness that God has given to us. In other words, we develop a deep compassion for those who are less fortunate than us. And then thirdly, to walk humbly with the Lord. Now that may be the most difficult of all, because you see, our natural tendency is to be proud, arrogant, and overconfident. A few years ago, I read a worldwide survey of 13-year-old kids to discover what nation was the best at mathematics. The result, interestingly, number one was South Korea. 13-year-old Korean kids were better in math than anyone else. Do you have any idea where the United States placed? Dead last. But here's the interesting thing about the survey. After it was taken, the kids were asked, do you think you're good at math? 23% of the Koreans who placed first said, yes, I think I'm good at math. 68% of the U.S. kids who placed dead last said, yes, I think I'm good at math. What does that tell you? God says that we need to walk humbly. Now, I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm bad at math. Math is my kryptonite. But the Bible says that God mocks the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So America needs to change. And if she does, it will not just be because of what happens in the White House, but because of what has happened in your house and mine. That is what will bring about change that is needed. When we get back on track again and put God in the center of our churches, our homes, and our schools, then America will change, and she will become the country that God has always wanted her to be the witness of Christianity to the rest of the world. Some years ago, Neil Inlow wrote the words and music to a very meaningful song. And I'm going to share the lyrics of that song with you this morning. In New York Harbor stands a lady with a torch raised to the sky. And all who see her know she stands for liberty for you and me. I'm so proud to be called an American, to be named with the brave and the free. I will honor our flag and our trust in God and the Statue of Liberty. On lonely Golgotha stood a cross with my Lord raised to the sky. And all who kneel there live forever, as all the saved can testify. I'm so glad to be called a Christian, to be named with the ransomed and whole. As the statue liberates the citizen, so the cross liberates the soul. Oh, the cross is my statue of liberty. It was there that my soul was set free. Unashamed, I'll proclaim that a rugged cross is my statue of liberty. I love this country. I love the freedom that we enjoy. But as Neil Inlow points out, there is a greater monument to freedom than the Statue of Liberty. It is the cross on which Jesus died for your and my sins. There we will find real liberty, because in Him we are set free from our sin. There is also a tomb, and the one who occupied it for a brief time is not unknown to us. But if you don't know Him, let me introduce Him to you. He's the Prince of Peace, the Son of God, the foundation of our country, and our Savior. It's, of course, Jesus.